In this part 2 of this video, I'll show you how I did the painting techniques and effects on how I did the sword. In the last video, I showed you how I built the sword, and now we're at the stage of bringing the sword to life. So I used some Krylon metallic black stainless to paint the guard and handle and pommel. Before I can paint the blade, I needed to make sure that my guard and handle is protected. So I basically used painter's tape to cover those areas, and once those are covered, I was ready to start painting the blade. I used a forged hammer antique pewter paint to spray on the sword to give a more hammered effect when it's all dried up. Once that was done, it was now time to remove all that painter's tape off of the handle and guard so I can proceed to the next step. Currently, the sword is a bit too shiny right now. So what I did is I basically took some black gesso acrylic paint, put some water in it to be a bit more watered down, and then after that, I basically covered the whole blade black, as you can see in the video right here. Once I finished covering the whole blade as a first layer, I basically took a paper towel and I basically start wiping it down the black paint to give a bit more texture, but leaving certain areas as well as the first layer. After that, I went again and put a second layer through the blade again as well, as you can see, to give a more texture, because by doing this, it allows me to give a bit more of a worn texture to the blade and aging the blade even more by doing that way. So as you can see there's one side is very shiny and the other side is a bit worn. So you can see there's a nice difference now by just doing that simple technique. I then use Miniatorium varnish to help seal in the black, but also it's a matte varnish, so it allowed me to dull the shininess of the blade as well. And as you can see, it makes it more older for the sword. Now it's time to give it more life to the guard and pommel. So basically I use a silver acrylic paint and I start dry brushing those areas to give a bit more of a highlight and effect to show it's a bit more metallic areas. I then use some shade oil to fill in out those little details area. It's a nice paint that you can use in your miniatures as well, but also just filling those little gaps, it allowed me to bring out the blade's details and design of the guard even more. So as you can see, you have to be a bit patient because you have to be tedious and go within there and not to go outside of those grooves. But as you keep going, it gave more life to the guard itself. And as you can see when you're done, life. So what I did, I decided to take a step even further to make the sword look older. So what I did is I added some resting effect throughout the whole blade. So I basically used some scrag brown paint across the blade, and I started applying it. After that, I used a napkin to wipe down certain areas, added more scrag, and then wipe it down a bit more, just to try and give a more natural rusting effect throughout the blade. So I added in the groove of the blade and across the whole blade itself as well. I then went and used some Fire Dragon Bright. I dabbed on top of the scrag brown, then wiped it down a bit. And I did that, repeat that step over or across the blade to give the illusion of fresher rust and the older rust on top of the blade. As you can see, it gave a more of an older vibe to the sword by just doing those simple effects. To help complete the sword, I need to give the sword some black leathered straps on the handle. So to achieve this, I basically use some black electrical tape with the sticky side out. I wrapped it all around the handle like so. And then I used some full black leather straps, and at each end I did some angles on those ends, because as you start wrapping it around, I want to make sure it has a nice taut and tight feel to it, and it looks seamless. So by doing that, I start wrapping around, overlapping the bottom area as well, but keeping it a tight around the blade, as you can see here. And I start wrapping it around and around all the way to the top. When I arrived at the top, I basically took that last angle piece and I went and tucked it in into the other piece of leather to be tucked in and look seamless. And when that was done, now you have a nice leathered strap onto the sword. And there you have it, a complete sword ready and fit for a Ring Wraith or Witch King cosplay.